Local government trying to recover from a challenging year. And a new business making a name for itself. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
Watching the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening all. I'm Shashina Will-Parkinson. As always, it is so great to have you with us. Topping news, the Bahamas National Commission on Marijuana in a preliminary report recommending the legalization of medicinal marijuana and the decriminalization of the possession of up to 1 ounce of the substance. According to reports, preliminary findings were in part based on several town meetings and the views of Bahamians who were surveyed on the matter. Well, tonight, a clinical psychologist shares why he supports the legalization of marijuana, but under certain conditions. Clinical psychologist Dr. Gregory Swan says he supports the legalization of marijuana under certain conditions. He says before the government proceeds with any decision, the pros and the cons must be weighed heavily.
If we were to legalize marijuana, some of the upside obviously would be some of the basic stuff. You'll have increase in revenue, tax revenue. You have increase in job opportunities. You would have a decrease, in my view, in criminal activities associated with marijuana usage simply because it's now legal. On the downside, on the con, we would obviously have to monitor very closely kids between the ages of 12 and 17.
He says that's the age where the kids tend to be experimental.
If it becomes legalized, the age limit should be greater than 18. Yeah. The brain is still developing up to 25, and one might say with the legal drinking age, 21 may be a good starting point. Again, on the good side, marijuana, if you look at marijuana and the contents of, say, alcohol and tobacco, which are currently legal, they would produce things as liver failure, cancer, heart failure.
But Dr. Swan believes that certain classifications should be implemented.
Particularly for the medical support use. I also believe that we ought to regulate, by legalizing marijuana, it should address the misdemeanor usage. Folks that have records for years and years because of a simple possession use, I think would affect that population. So I do support it if it has effective control, meaning that it's regulated by the state. You have a proper institution to manage it.
However, he contends that it should be done in a phased approach, and Bahamians should own the industry if and when it becomes lawful.
I think they should be all Bahamian owned, even if there's a need for international collaboration. The corporation itself should be Bahamianized, and those corporations should be given guidelines to invite international partners.
Now, late last year, Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Hubert Minnis, became the first sitting Prime Minister to favor decriminalizing the possession of small amounts of marijuana and making the substance legal for medicinal and/or scientific purposes. Well, more details tonight on the ban on single-use plastics that is now in effect. As Jamila Mizik tells us, the decision was made in the best interest of the environment.
In accordance with the Environmental Protection Control of Plastic Pollution Bill 2019, the Bahamas has joined a global movement towards sustainable living through the elimination of plastic and styrofoam contaminants. By implementing a single-use plastic and styrofoam ban, the Bahamas joins more than 40 countries around the world, including parts of the United States, the United Kingdom, Denmark, Ireland, Haiti, and others that have already enforced or are in the process of formulating bans on selected plastic and styrofoam products. The Ministry of Environment says in launching this environmentally focused movement, the government hopes to spark enthusiasm and energy so that this initiative can be the catalyst that leads to the groundbreaking environmental policies within our island nation. The goal of the ban is to reduce the presence of litter within our communities and the marine environment environment, reduce waste sent to the landfill, reduce human health impacts associated with styrofoam food containers, and reduce the incidence of marine species entanglement, ingestion, suffocation, and death. This ban is also a part of the government's response to climate change, a global phenomenon that is devastating our environment by shifting weather patterns and creating monster storms like Hurricane Dorian. Since the plastic ban took effect on January 1st, businesses are now permitted to charge a fee of 25 cents to $1 to consumers for plastic bags and biodegradable bags until June 30th this year. The purchase of the bag must be reflected on the customer's receipt as a separate line item. Value-added tax or VAT will be added to the sale of each bag as per other items sold across the country by law. The Ministry of Environment says that this checkout bag fee is not a government tax and that the government of the Bahamas does not receive the funds collected as a result of the sale of a plastic bag. These funds are collected by and retained by the businesses from which the consumer purchases the bag. The ministry adds that the purpose of the fee is to discourage consumers from buying plastic bags and to encourage them to carry reusable bags to the shop so that they do not need to buy a plastic bag, which will reduce the number of plastic bags in circulation. Businesses can also sell compostable bags, which look like plastic bags but are plant-based and therefore less harmful to the environment until 2022. The ministry encourages members of the public to visit www.plasticfree242.com for information about the ban, including the Environmental Protection Control of Plastic Bill 2019. Jamila Mizik, ZNS Network News.
Well, the City of Freeport Council in the rebuilding stage following last year's superstorm. Chief Counselor for the city says the challenges are great, but he notes that they are not discouraged and will continue to empower the community. Italia Hall has more.
Chief Counselor Kendall Comer says there were a number of plans in place for the city of Freeport, but Hurricane Dorian caused those plans to shift as a number of their assets were destroyed during the storm. He says they are now in the process of completing repairs by the end of next month.
Susan J. Wallace was damaged severely by the storm. Wellington Ferguson Community Center damaged by the storm. Some of the parks have been damaged. We're outside doing this interview right now. We had flooding in this office where we lost most of our documents, furniture, electronic devices. So right now we're in the rebuilding process.
The main office will now be moved to the Pride from Manor Corporate Plaza on West Mall Drive. Comer says there are some challenges that the council faced last year. One in particular is a reduction in the annual budget.
Nassau has been cutting our budget ever since we've come into office, and it makes things a little difficult, makes it tight in terms of some of the plans that we had for the community at large. And other problems that we face are damages, looting, persons dumping garbage on the parks and what's not, because this also adds to our operation expense, having to replace equipment over and over again and removing debris. It's very disheartening to know that persons actually will go in the park and destroy a sliding board, a swing, and then we have to turn back and replace it, and then to go back 3 months later and have to replace it again. So we would ask the persons in the community to take better care of local government's property, which is also their property.
He says another challenge is the fact that they are not always able to meet the demands of residents.
Street signs, road, speed bumps, street lights and things like that. Whereas we can't take government funds to repair private assets.
But the chief counselor says the goal this year is to provide more social programs to bring the community together.
Coral Reef Estate, they have a program going on there where they meet quarterly. They have lunch and dinners and parties planned together where the community comes together and express their views in terms of making the community better. We wanted to widen that to Pioneers Loop and other communities within the city of Freeport. Also, we had a backyard farming program put in place where we partnered with Ms. Butters at Jack Hayward School, where we had some 1,400 plants that were planted already and were just about ready for distribution, but the hurricane actually washed all away.
Now, Culmer says once repairs have been made, they hope to get those programs off the ground. It's Talia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Thanks, Italia. Well, a series of town meetings kicking off tonight in North Abaco to discuss post-Hurricane Dorian issues. Tonight's meeting is taking place at the Faith Walk Church in Cooperstown and will include government officials as well as non-government agencies. Abaco was dealt a severe blow by Hurricane Dorian in September of last year. Area Member of Parliament Darren Henfield says tonight's meeting will focus on information sharing as they seek to return a greater sense of normalcy to that northern island.
You know, Abaco and Grand Bahama represent almost 20% of the Bahamian economy, and that's a tremendous loss to our GDP. And so we hope as soon as possible to get the economy moving, get Abaconians back home to work, get the schools pretty much now open, most of them. We hope that by the middle of the year, 2020, that we'll have Shrill and Boodle High School open. We hope also that we know that we can have the primary school open by the middle of the year. People don't want to leave their primary school students somewhere else and come home to recover and to get their homes back. And so we have to get the schools open so that we can have people returning home.
Now, Henfield says the island is making progress, and that's thanks to the resilience of the people of Abaco and assistance from far and wide. Tomorrow night's meeting is set for Foxtown.
Right now we're working, and this is one of the purposes, the main purposes for the meeting tonight. One of the NGOs will be there on Global Empowerment Mission, who's doing a lot of tremendous work in Little Abaco, and the government will engage in hiring contractors through vouchers to help assist that work and more progressively move it forward. But I like to say to people, you would have to have been in Abaco on the 1st of September and seen the after effect of the impact of Dorian, and then come back over a period of time to assess how the progress is going in Abaco. And when I come home every time, as I came home today, I see cleaning up that wasn't there before. I see a sign of resilience in people tapping their homes. I know the NGOs are working. I know that the government is engaged and now through the authority to assessing all the needs that we need to in order to be able to restore people's lives.
And also from Abaco tonight, an immigration officer is dead following a traffic accident. Police tell us that the tragic situation unfolded on the Ernestine Highway just out of Sandy Point sometime around 3 p.m. yesterday. Reports say 2 immigration officers were traveling in a Jeep Wrangler when the driver lost control and the vehicle overturned. Both men sustained serious injuries and were transported to the medical facility in Marsh Harbor, where one of the men, identified as Chief Immigration Officer Bradley McDonald, succumbed to his injuries. The second immigration officer, believed to have been the driver, was airlifted to New Providence for further medical attention. Officers from Police Traffic Department are in Abaco to continue investigations into this fatal accident.